Leilani Cawthon here with Learning Council News Media, and I'm in San Antonio. And I have my really good friends, Eva Mendoza, who is the Chief Information Officer, San Antonio ISD, and her pal and buddy. You guys are on a buddy system, right?
We are.
We're
like this.
We are.
Becky Landa, Senior Executive Director of Educational Technology and Extended Learning, which is the adults, right?
Yeah,
Or
it's
the
somewhat
after-school
changed
kids.
to organizational learning.
Oh, organizational learning. Yeah. Also San Antonio ISD.
Yes.
You guys are a really large district.
We are.
We're going to talk about that today.
Sure.
Okay, good. All right, well, let's hear from you. Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause.
Well, welcome everyone. Always happy to host great organizations like the Learning Council. Always learn a lot from our conversations. So we're happy to be telling a little bit about our story here at SAISD. And like many school districts, when I look around, the vision and mission of many school districts is, different words, but pretty much the same. We all want to prepare our students for beyond graduation. We want to make sure they're good members of society, that they can contribute to society. And a lot of that now with AI includes tech. No matter what industry or what field you go into, they do have to have digital literacy, AI literacy. So we're going to talk a little bit about our journey here at SAISD, what we've done in these last few years since AI has gone mainstream, and maybe some tips for success. And maybe we'll even hear from y'all if y'all have some tips for success as we navigate this AI world. Who owns AI, right? When it first came out, there's many, many things. And I almost have deja vu to when cybersecurity was becoming a big thing. And it was like, oh, cybersecurity, that's Eva, right? When AI first started coming out, it was like, oh, it's AI, that's Eva, right? It's IT, it's an IT tool. But really, when you're trying to incorporate any big change, if you want big culture shifts, big mindset, Eva and IT can't do it by ourselves. An individual teacher can't do it by herself. It does take everybody. So when we talk about implementing a successful generative AI strategy for a school district, really the responsibility, right, does fall with the leadership. So it has to start at the highest level. And as you see here on our slide, everybody plays an important role, right? From the superintendent and the cabinet. IT does have a very specific role, right? I have never been in a classroom, and it's extremely important for me to partner always with Becky, instructional academic teams to get their perspectives. When I think of AI, I think of something maybe totally different than what a classroom teacher is thinking about, right? So again, everybody has a role. And leadership definitely has to be involved if you want to have a good rollout. So at SAISD, we see, everybody as part of our AI strategy, they're involved, and we're defining what it means and what everybody's role looks like. But from the cabinet, IT, from the principals and the teachers, central office staff, we all have to work together to even create and develop a good strategy, but then to communicate it out and implement it with fidelity. So in our district, something that we are using, and this is a tool that was made by COSIN. COSIN is a national organization and Council of Great City Schools. They partnered in putting this together. And this tool, the reason it's one of my favorite tools is because it's very comprehensive. So again, it's not just looking at the technical pieces of AI, the security pieces, but really from a broad comprehensive lens. So it has 7 modules, the tool. It starts with leadership, and then going back to, everybody's role, what's the superintendent, cabinet's role, and they're really leading the strategy, right? In that module, it talks about legislation, use policy, and then just equity across your schools and your district. On the operational side, this includes procurement and staffing, right? Because there's so many angles to look at it when you think about bringing AI into the school district. So like I've sat with our procurement staff to make sure that they understand what they're supposed to be looking at when they look at contracts for software, for new digital tools. So data, our data warehouse teams, data governance, data quality, data privacy, like all those things come into place. And then of course the technical pieces, and those are the ones like that our teams are interested in: identity management, role access. What are you seeing? Is your data ready for AI, right? And then the last three that we look at: security, legal, and risk, but very, very important, right, for your instructional use, is that academic literacy piece that we've been looking at. Again, a lot of different lenses that we're looking, a lot of different perspectives, but I alone in IT or Becky alone in academics, right, can't have a good strategy if we're not all at the table together. It's such a huge, huge tool, right, with a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of risk if not implemented correctly. So I'm going to hand it over to Becky, who's going to steal the show, because she's going to talk about all the good stuff and how some of the challenges that we've seen in AI and the classroom on the instructional side, and how we've overcome some of the things that we've come up against.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yes.
Eva. I mean, you can imagine we do have a really strong partnership in terms of the way we collaborate with one another to make sure that we can have these conversations, because quite frankly, about 2 years ago, when we first started looking into AI and what it was going to happen, we of course reached out to federal and state agencies to find out where are they with this. And to this day, there's not much out there at all. And so for us to begin conversations at the district level, it's become kind of important for us to bring people to the table. So about 2 years ago, we started with almost like an advisory team, but very quickly we found out, like, okay, no, we need something else needs to happen here. One of the major concerns that we had was just, if we're starting to release some of the software, what's happening to kind of protections, right? And so, and what was kind of the conversation? So for us, kind of the first thing that we started looking at was just the urban education challenge. Like, let's look at our reality, the diversity in our student populations, and from languages to just backgrounds, the socioeconomic disparities. You're in an urban school district right now. You're visiting a large school district that has those things as part of their challenges. Large class size. Districts like ours have tried to maintain lower class sizes, but economics moves us into a different direction, just because we do need to save some funding. The achievement gaps are persistent for us. We have a huge, the transition kind of periods where kids move from one school to the other, they exist in a district like ours. And then just the need for relevance and engaging instruction is there. It's real for us. And I mean, we just looked at some research right now too on that alpha generation. It's clearly an issue for our classrooms. So how do we unlock the potential? We got together with a group of folks that we invited to start making some decisions, because while I tell you that the state and federal agencies don't have a lot of information on AI, vendors do. Like, vendors are producing product left and right? And so one of the things that we had to do is figure out, how do we manage this new resource, this new information? And so we created a committee to be able to review some of the products and start looking at what might be viable as a solution for the district. Now, in terms of unlocking the potential, we knew that it was going to support us in personalized learning. And so you can see, even from the slide deck, differentiation is still a challenge in our classrooms. And so the ability to do things like that, to be able to give us some very specific feedback, to feed a system and to say, look at something like this, and then let us know who's hit that mark. That was really important. Adjusting the difficulty. I mean, the number of software pieces that we have in a district our size to be able to help us with those things is real. And so the automation of tasks to free up some time. Who doesn't want a few more minutes, right? The idea of making sure that we can enhance teaching and learning through these systems is there too, or the meeting the diverse needs of students. All of those are challenges, but opportunities with this type of new technology. So for us in the classroom, we know that there's a potential that we can reach. The other thing that we were looking at is, how do we treat any kind of investigation on the software a little bit different than we've done in the past? So if you're looking at AI software, we were not going to look at it from the lens of any product that comes in and that we say, here's one tool to meet this one element. We started treating it as a textbook adoption. So what you see here is actually the process that we take for large scale adoptions. So we formulate based on our regulations that we have, we base it on creating several types of committees. The first being an academic committee that involves everyone, representation from your bilingual department, your core content departments, technology department, everybody that comes into that. The second part of it is to create a teacher committee. So within that teacher committee, we want teacher voices because they're the ones that are going to use these products. They're going to need to be able to teach us how best to implement these products. And the third committee is really a stakeholder group. At this district, we really value people's voices. And so part of that is that we establish large advisory teams all over the district for a lot of different purposes. And so we make sure that we've got district advisory communication, collaboration from all sorts of groups. And that's what you see here. Our decision, our final decision, we make sure that every committee member is very fully aware that a decision will be based on their recommendation with the ecosystem being something that we make sure it can integrate into. And that, of course, we have the budget is considered. And so for us, we took the same kind of element. I will tell you in this committee, we had, I think, over 100 people representing. And it was, I think, the most comprehensive committee we've had, even for adoptions. Now, you can get 200 people in an adoption, but to look at the representation that included from network instructional superintendents to teachers to principals, I mean, committees made up of EdTech and IT people. I mean, it was just really quite fascinating. The other things for us is really how do we consider the elements, and even in these conversations with committee members, teachers brought up ethics right away. They wanted to know, what are our guardrails? What are the boundaries that we set? So as we look at kind of how we recognize the value of AI, but then how do we make sure it's safe? We started looking at academic integrity, transparency and accountability, and ethical use, right? These are just some of the administrative regulations that we have to tap into to make sure those guardrails are set, right? One big one is grading, because transparency to us is being able to share with a parent that I am using AI to evaluate or to provide feedback on student learning. But once you get grades involved, then that's something that we have to really look at carefully. The other thing, aside from how you use communication technology, what are the right uses, inappropriate uses, what do we lock down, what do we provide as a resource for schools, all of that can be looked at. But I think the other part for us that it really helped us look at was how many things are we letting through our ecosystem, and at what point do we say, oh, let's halt a little bit here. There's so much replication. There's so many free apps all over the place.
Yes.
And they do wonderful things. I'm not going to deny that they don't. But at some point, you have to pull back a little bit. And you have to reevaluate what is it that you're placing in front of a teacher. Very recently, out of the organizational learning team, we looked at over 2,000 records of professional development, surveys that teachers had taken, things that they had done. And when we looked at that information, some of the things that we noticed was just the number of platforms that teachers must really learn how to use. We could take, I think it was a third grade teacher, and identify 37 distinct opportunities for professional development, most of which are tied to a platform. That's a lot. That's a lot. And so would it help?
Can I add something there?
Sure.
It's a lot. And then looking at it from a cybersecurity lens, sometimes when requests come in and we deny an additional app, and for our sake, we have to make sure they are securing their data just the way we would secure ours. So if I have to make sure one company does that, that's okay. 2, okay, still okay, we can keep up with them. 50, 200, 500, and we're really putting the district and the students' data at risk the more apps that we come in. So just wanted to put in the IT perspective there.
And we're grateful.
Yes. Yeah.
So one of the things that we had to come to agreement were several things. One, under our new leadership, because while I have spent 30 years in academics, we're now under operations, and it still has a very tie-in into academics. But one of the things that we agreed upon is that we were going to be introducing enterprise systems. So as an enterprise system, what do we do to support teachers learn something with a comprehensive, outcomes-based thinking, not just parts and pieces? The other was, how do we look at software review? So software review could have started with a teacher saying, hey, I really like this product. Can I use it? And someone in academics saying, sure, go ahead. It looks like it's okay. And then another team saying, wait a minute. Aren't we already using something like this? I mean, it was like a constant thing. And before you knew it, there was a lot of controversy or conflict among what was chosen and being placed in the classroom. Plus, how much time is being spent on a product that even curricular departments are unfamiliar with. And so one of the things that we have now done as an agreement is that it will require much more, we call them here like a 360 review, where you have to justify what it is that you're looking at, and it has to be approved at the network instructional superintendent level. Because they're the ones that are going to be admitting yet a new software into the schools that they supervise. That's big.
Yeah.
That's big. And the accountability, so we noticed that we looked at transparency and accountability. That's where it starts to hit those areas. And so we think that by doing that, the conversations are held at that level before we just continue it as a general approval process. And then for us, it's like, how do we collaborate? So what you see on the left side is really a checklist. And so when we work with any committee members, we tell them, this is where we're at. This is where we're going with this, so that everybody's aware as to where we are in a process. And so we're pretty transparent about those things. We also start looking at, how do we start to advertise early on how we're going to launch something. And so you'll see here, those are examples of save the date and trying to get ourselves ready for a conference during the summer to begin this work. And then for us, really, it's just about how do we launch something effectively and make sure that it integrates into that classroom in the most effective and viable way. Because building efficiencies in the classroom is not skipping steps, right? It's not making decisions that don't allow for the teacher to have that evaluation of student work. They still have to do that. And so, our partnership continues as we learn through this process. And we hope that what we're doing, the steps that we're taking, and now with the guidance of COSIN, that we're able to do something that's really of value for this district.
And I'm not sure how many central office staff members are here, but if you're part of central office and you're not providing any guidance, because at first me and Becky were like, okay, what do we do? And we're like, we got to put some guidance out there, put some guardrails. And they'll just start using it. Like teachers will start using it. They'll start using different ones in different ways. So you really got to put some guidelines out there for them. And that's when we started this new adoption of our standardized AI classroom tool was so important, because we saw all different ones popping up, being used in different ways. And when you talk about equity, in our AI committee that Becky mentioned that we started 2 years ago, we had some teachers that were doing amazing things with AI 2 years ago. Great stuff, incorporated into their classes, using it with their students. And then you had a teacher 2 doors down that was saying, absolutely not, you're not allowed to use AI, right? Students competing for the same scholarships, for the same valedictorian, salutatorian. And again, like that is what a good strategy and a good guidelines will make sure that does not happen, because we do not want that happening to some students or taking advantage. And again, being prepared for after they leave us, and others are not. So,
Yeah.
You guys like this? This is awesome. I think we have like 4 minutes to ask
Excellent.
you guys questions. So my first question is this, because you're going enterprise level now, right? A lot of the LMSs, student information and enterprise software companies, are starting to umbrella under them the courseware, all the remedial, the discrete digital libraries. Can you shove the responsibility, especially you, shove the responsibility into the security wing on them contractually?
oh yes,
It would still be the same.
yes,
It would still be the same thing. The expectation would still be that they would follow into that.
You'd still be responsible.
Yeah, or we don't do business with you, right? Because it's our responsibility to secure that student data. If something happens, even if it's a breach with any of those companies, it'd be nice if our parents and community would go to them, but they're not. They're going to come to us. So we need to ensure that all of those applications are adhering to our policies.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that there's going to be that sort of consolidation.
Yes.
It has to be. It has to be, because even, when Eva talks about teachers having, they were trying some things out and doing some really cool stuff, what they don't understand is what happens with that student information, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so they don't know that that's not,
but
but it's a reality, right?
Yeah.
It comes back to the district. So for us, even having them understand, even our administrators kind of look at that, because we have had our own little kind of internal arguments about what they should keep and then what we should say no to.
Yeah.
I mean, those exist, and it's really fundamentally the protection of student information.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think we're going to move the conversation into the protection of the knowledge path too.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's a balance.
The normalization of the enterprise knowledge path. We're talking about that. I'm interested to get your feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, so like 2 more minutes maybe. So one question: who's going to be the brave? You want that? Okay, no, it's not. Okay.
Which one's my water, Becky? This
So
one?
just
this one?
out
Okay.
of curiosity, because right now our review process is different, and you mentioned that y'all do a 360 review where it has to be approved at the assistant super level. I'm just curious, how long does that process take? Because sometimes our teachers are like, I want this and I want it now.
It's not a fast
and
process.
So there's a lot of angst, and we have to.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's never going to change in terms of like the ability to turn key something really fast. But here's the thing for us, we've already put into place that we have to have vendor agreements on data protections, right? Those can take up several weeks.
Yeah.
So they already know about that. I think for us, the more important thing is that starting next year, we are introducing, especially this next year, high quality instructional materials. It is going to change. So it was interesting to see the first initial articles, because we're moving in that direction. So the time that it will take is going to be like a slow down, and that's going to be okay. So that we are not, in fact, placing so many things out there that may not be in line or aligned to the high quality instructional materials.
Right now, we have a freeze. There's no software app requests currently. Yeah,
Right.
Becky got that through. So, and any exceptions have to be approved by our deputy of academics and school leadership. So it goes up to that level. So people really think about like, do I really need this software? But we almost had to put that in place, because I said, these keep coming through. I mean, like, it's April and my superintendent says, why are we getting requests for new things in April when school's like almost out? And I'm like, I don't think anybody's asked that question. I don't know. They probably saw something free. It looked cool. They want to use it. But like, to me, because IT historically has been seen as the department of no, N-O, right? And we don't want to say no. We want to say, like, we want you to be innovative, like within a safe space. But we got to balance, right, the security with like all this innovation of just bringing in all these apps. And again, being tied to academics, being tied to the TEKS. So we're slowing down, and that it's going to take time. You're not going to submit your request today and you're going to have it tomorrow.
Right.
And it's because we're safeguarding the kids' data and we're making sure that it's aligned on the academic side.
That is such a great point, because instead of being the Department of NO, being the Department of W.
Yeah.
So being planned and purposeful about the apps
Mhm.
and the software.
Absolutely. And the truth is that we're going to be reviewing 4 times a year, and that's it. So that limitation is going to be, and it's not going to come in from a teacher, like any teacher just saying, hey, I want this. It's going to have to be through a process. So it'll be a principal that would be recommending this particular software up to their network instructional superintendent. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get something. But again, it has to meet the expectations that we're setting for high quality instructional materials.
Awesome. Awesome. Do we love this? Let's give a round of applause. Okay. You
All
guys are
right.
awesome. Can't wait to hear all the rest later on.
All right. All right. Thank you.